All right, what's up, my brothers? In this video, I want to add some commentary and sort of respond to this post on Dr. Huberman, Andrew Huberman, in the New York Magazine by a journalist by the name of Carrie Howley. So it summarizes speaking with former girlfriends who reveal the darker side to the neuroscientist turned podcast host, and using words along the lines of manipulative behavior, deceit, and numerous affairs. Huberman apparently didn't contribute anything to this article or respond when they asked for his commentary, so this is all this journalist speaking to the ex-girlfriends. But the better part of the article was spent building this case around who he is, his childhood, the troubled childhood that he had, and then the women that he's been involved with over the last few years. He's only become popular, I think, in the last 4 or 5 years or so, probably around 4. I would say would be fair. And he's known for long tail sort of podcasts, 3 hours plus, diving deep into topics like sleep, how the brain works, how alcohol affects you. They're very, very useful. I've watched quite a lot of them. I prefer the clips for summaries, but as far as this article goes, which is what I want to talk about, the accusations about him being deceitful and basically being a player, I find interesting. I shared this on my Twitter timeline, X timeline now, I keep mixing those two up. And I said, become popular and your exes will often come out of the woodwork to talk shit about you. Some of the comments on this included, feminism has changed the risk-reward profile of fame for men. Famous men used to have groupies. Now they have false accusations instead. Another commenter said, proof that he's making it, respect for him and his project, spreading science, the real one, and knowledge like never before has been done like this. Another commenter mentioned that he's left a trail of alpha widows everywhere. An alpha widow, if you don't know, is a woman that has pined for a man that she failed to have him commit to her, and will often hold a place in her head and her heart for him on a long-term basis and often speak of him, which I think is a fair assessment. If you're a gal that's been involved with a guy like Huberman and you're singing like a canary to the media or to journalists about your relationship with the guy, there's something going on there. Get over it, sort of like move on, right? Another commenter says, everyone's exes are going to say something bad about them, especially if the person has moved on and doing better than them. Hate never comes from above. This is one of the taglines that I use. Hate always comes from beneath you, never above. Nobody ever gets jealous of a loser is the full set of lyrics that I've used, which he's trying to summarize over there. All right, so why are we adding some context to this story about Andrew Huberman? A lot of the accusations that were thrown at him by these ex-girlfriends was that he was deceitful, he was dating multiple women simultaneously in a non-monogamous fashion. The very first one in the article, the first story, is a woman that goes by the name of Sarah, obviously not her real name according to the journalist, but this was a single mom of 2 kids that Huberman got involved with when he reached out to her apparently via Instagram and was talking about living in a similar neighborhood, and they got together and she obviously got a little sweet on him and they started a relationship. At some point in that relationship, she asked for a commitment, which is what should typically happen if a woman has a genuine desire for a guy. And they started living together or, blending their lives in such a way that looked like that they were living together. She was under the assumption that he was monogamous to her. He apparently did not give her that clarity that he was monogamous to her, and continued to exercise some options out there, which, look, you're successful, you're influential, you're handsome. I think he's 48, if I'm not mistaken, was the age that they pinned him at in the article. You're well-respected, well-regarded. Men want to be you. Women want to be with you. Like, what did you think is going to happen when you invite a successful man into your life as a woman? He's going to have options, and it's very rare for guys with options to not exercise those options and, basically just stick to monogamy. Like I said in my book, monogamy's got to be a choice. You got to choose it. It's something that you got to want to do. It can't be enforced on you. If it's enforced on you, it often leads to deceit, which seems to be what happened here. Because this gal, Sarah gal, the single mom of 2, apparently felt like she was betrayed or cheated on or deceived by our friend Mr. Huberman. It's okay when women do it. It's totally fine when women step out, when they go and have extramarital affairs, they cheat on guys, they lead guys to believe that they're in something that's committed, but they step out. They do it for their own reasons, and I'll say this. From my own experience, from the guys that I've dealt with in my own coaching practices, from the interviews that I've watched with women talking about the differences between men and women stepping out, women do it as much, if not more than men, in my estimation. They're just way better at hiding it. They're so much better at being deceitful than men are. Men don't go through or to the lengths that women do, and that's because women, when they're found to be promiscuous or misleading men or deceiving men, stand to suffer the consequences of slut shaming. Female promiscuity has a different level of negative connotation than it does to men. A guy that can get lots of women is considered a stud. A guy that can acquire lots of women that show a strong degree of interest and wanting to be with him is considered valuable, studly, a champion of women. Some people call him a player, some people call him a womanizer, whatever it is that you want to call him. The fact still remains is it's harder for a guy to get women to be interested in him, multiple women interested in him on a serious basis than a woman to get multiple guys to do the exact same thing. It's very easy. Woman can be like walking her garbage to the end of the curb and get hit on by guys. Like, women get hit on everywhere. It's very, very easy. They've done a lot of studies where they've had women go out and approach a whole bunch of guys and ask them for like a one-night stand or for sex immediately, and the vast majority of guys will be like, right now, like, where do you want to go, sort of thing. When the opposite happens, with women, and a handsome guy approaches a bunch of women and does the exact same thing, in North America, all of them say no because of the negative connotation tied around slut shaming and female promiscuity. You go to certain places in Europe, I think they try to replicate the same test. It might have been in Holland or Amsterdam, but somewhere in northwestern sort of Europe. And there was actually a small contingent of women that agreed to the promiscuity and the immediate advance to have a one-night stand right then and there. So there's huge differences between the sexes, but I find it really, really interesting when these hit pieces come out, because again, if Huberman was a nobody, you'd never hear about this. The only reason why you hear about this is because he's famous and he's successful. One of the funny comments that I saw was from one of his competitors. We can call it a competitor. I can't remember what school he's from, Stanford. Let's say the other one was from Harvard, but like a competing school. And this woman said, oh, this guy's a snake oil salesman, and some soundbite around using the word toxic masculinity. This is standard, right? Disqualify your competitor. He's a snake oil salesman. This is toxic masculinity. He's a bad person. How does that change his body of work? How does that change, the tens of thousands, probably even close to hundreds of thousands of hours worth of extremely valuable content that he's put out there that have helped men put down the bottle and stop drinking, reduce the amount of cannabis consumption, sleep better at night, perform better, be strong and masculine? How does that change any of that he had some interest in multiple women? So what? Women do it all the time too. One of the things that fascinates me to no end is the narrative that we have in North America, where it's all about, let's make an overt, complete statement towards monogamy, and then in a clandestine way operate stepping out of that relationship. It's so funny to me because there's other places in the world where it's just like they just look the other way and it's no big deal, but they seem to make a huge deal out of it, especially when it's somebody of some significance or influence out there. And he's a bad person, he's toxic masculine, he's deceitful, multiple affairs, blah blah blah. I mean, one of the things that popped up in the article was he seemed to have a strong issue with this gal Sarah, the first one that was talked about, that was a single mom of two that they started to share residences with, it seems like, where he would accuse her, or apparently become enraged was the word that was used in the article, because of her bad choices in the past. Some of it seemed to tie around her having kids with a guy from the past. I mean, that's on Huberman for inviting a single mom into his life. And maybe while he was, more of an unknown, or maybe just an up-and-comer at the time, it might have been the best that he could have done. There's lots of really attractive, late 30s, 40-something-year-old women with kids in tow that will attract successful guys. But I'm assuming what ended up happening is, as he ascended the ranks of influence and popularity, more and more women were reaching out to him, slipping in his DMs, perhaps even students from his lectures, hopefully not during the time that he was the professor or the speaker on the subject, but after the fact when the class had resigned or been dismissed and he was no longer part of it, might have reached out to him and approached him. It's like, what do you think a successful 48-year-old guy is going to do that has healthy levels of testosterone, works out, is jacked, handsome, and women are throwing attention at him? It's normal. It's always been that way. But we see articles like this where it's like, oh, let's point and sputter at him. He's a bad man, toxic masculinity, deceit, blah blah blah. I'm telling you guys, women are just as deceitful, if not more deceitful than men. Only women can cuckold a guy. Guys can't cuckold a woman. A woman has 100% assurance of paternity when she's pregnant and has a baby, whereas a man doesn't. He has a degree of uncertainty, right? So women routinely deceive men more than men can deceive women. If you just use the notion of cuckoldry and a woman taking on the seed of another man and then saying, oh, it's yours, when sometimes it in fact isn't. There's no accurate number as far as what that could look like. Some say it's as high as 20 to 30%. Some say it's around 10%. Who cares? Who knows? It exists. And there's also the fact that women are also exceptionally deceitful when it comes to men when they're dating, because of their hypergamous nature. They want the best that they can get. So they entertain options. It's okay when women entertain options and date multiple guys simultaneously, or might lead a guy to believe that they're in a committed relationship while still entertaining options as they go about their life. That's fine, because women are very, very good at hiding it. Men don't go to the same lengths that women do to deceive the opposite sex. Men just sort of go about it. They'll try not to embarrass them. But, you know, sometimes stuff like this comes out, especially when you're a popular guy. So you too, men, can become popular, successful, influential, and all that stuff. And at some point, it's entirely plausible that you could be in a news article like this, where your exes come out of the woodwork and tell all kinds of wonderful stories about you. How's Dr. Huberman impacted your life? Has he been useful? I'm curious. Leave a comment below. What do you think about this article? I'll link it in the description if you want to take a look at it and read it. It's rather lengthy, but it's interesting nonetheless that he comes from a place where it's like Dr. Andrew Huberman gets shacked up with a single mom of two, which I discourage deeply to all men. There's an entire chapter in my book about why you should generally stay away from single moms. You guys can grab that. It's linked in the description below. It's what wise men do. Unwise men will invite these chicks into their lives. And I think he probably, at that point, realized he made a mistake and then started to contemplate some other options. He was also talking about having kids, which didn't make a lot of sense because they were apparently doing in vitro fertilization, and he was injecting her with HCG, and there was embryos that were like set aside for kids, sort of thing. She was kind of past that point, you know. She was in the latter years of her life, and that reproductive window where she could bring a man kids and bring him a family was either passing or had very closely passed. Due to her age. They didn't specify her exact age. I think at the time of the article they said mid-40s. So given that they had met in 2021, then around that time it seemed, would mean that she was probably at or passing the reproductive window of availability. Anyway, leave some comments below for the algorithm. It pinned in the top comment. There's links to my book, my supplement line, my community, all that good stuff. See you guys later. Peace out.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you